On my kicker tonight, I want to talk about big tribes, small tribes, and the question of inclusivity in the light of the sometimes heated conversations around the BBI debate. In the last few weeks, we have seen the conversation take the shape of a contest between some big tribes and some small tribes. Politicians have particularly been emotional and passionate, as they always very competently get on all matters tribal. The Narok edition of the BBI rallies and its prelude is illustrative here. Politicians have accused each other of hate speech, incitement, exclusion, and even extermination. Serious charges, I must say. But one thing that always surfaces whenever Kenyan politicians have an argument is the truth. The truth suffers because when Kenyan political antagonists speak, they play to the gallery, and they do that with very little regard to facts. And here is why Kenyans must see through the cloud of dust created by politicians and see the facts and address them for the long-term unity, stability, and progress of the Kenyan nation. The notion of big tribes versus small tribes is not new in Kenya. In the period before independence, two political parties contested political power along the lines of big tribes versus small tribes. KANU, the party that won the independence elections, was principally the party of Jomo Kenyatta and Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, and an alliance of the Kikuyu and the Luo tribes. KADU, on the other hand, positioned itself as a reply of small tribes to the alliance of big tribes, and KADU revolved around Daniel Arap Moi Etugen, Ronald Ngala Egiriama, and Martin Shikuku Emarama, among other leaders from communities that considered themselves very small. In 1992, the first multi-party election took the form of a contest between big tribes and small tribes, with President Moi fronting himself as the candidate of small tribes, surviving just because the divided opposition made of big tribes shared their 2/3 win between Jaramogi, Kenneth Matiba, and Mwai Kibaki. On constitutional reforms, the notion of big versus small tribes is a normal part of the Kenyan story. The place of ethnic numbers always decides the form of government tribes prefer, and it has been an unending swing between the presidential and parliamentary system, depending entirely on each tribe's worst fears about the outcome of the next election. Now, that the election of 2022 is 2 years away and a referendum on the constitution is probably just months away, we are back to the usual undertones of big tribes versus small tribes. A time-honored democratic principle holds that, quote, the majority must have their way and the minority must have their rights. This is a principle that Kenya must remain alive to in its navigation of the impending constitutional reforms. Presidential elections have increasingly become an ethnic census, and as the big tribes called it in 2013, a tyranny of numbers. When tribe and not merit is the yardstick to top political offices, then the fear of small tribes that they will only see State House on Viusasa is not misplaced. When the constitutional right to live anywhere in Kenya is seen as a one-way street that only allows big tribes to move in and crowd out small tribes in their native constituencies, then we are not talking about inclusivity. We are talking about domination. This is the fear of small tribes. It is not the fear of inclusivity. It is the fear of domination. Having been rendered irrelevant in the bigger ethnic contests like presidential elections, small tribes rightfully fear losing smaller units of representation, such as county governors, members of parliament, or even member of county assemblies, MCAs. Just like some submitted to the drafters of the 2010 Constitution, they don't want to lose the right to represent themselves in these smaller electoral units. But Kenyans cannot soberly and constructively discuss a delicate topic like this without wearing each other's shoes or even adopting that biblical value of a brother's keeper. It is a value of good neighborliness, of feeling and caring for each other's fears and aspirations. It is a norm that recognizes that inclusivity is a two-way embrace, not a one-way supremacy quest. And as a native of Narok, born and bred, I have known this great value to be in good practice amongst the tribes living in harmony in Narok until one, two, or all of the following happens. 1, when we go to general elections. 2, when constitutional changes are discussed. And 3, when Nairobi unleashes its toxic, ill-informed, self-serving politicians on the otherwise peaceful communities. That is my kicker.